And we are now recording, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. And everyone see the presentation all right?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Excellent. So thank you for attending this webinar on our solicitations. The main focus is on the research initiation grant solicitation, but we will be telling you about some others that you'll want to keep on your radar. So just for a quick overview, so we are from Idaho NASA EPSCoR, but our same staff, Matt, Cassie, Rosalie, and I, we also run the NASA Idaho Space Grant Consortium. So there can sometimes be confusion since we're the same office running two different programs. The focus of today is on EPSCoR, which is the established program to stimulate competitive research. And that is focused on only 28 states, Idaho being one of them, trying to make states more competitive in aerospace-related R&D. And so the opportunities we will be discussing today are focused on that. If you are interested in space grant, that's in all states. We had a webinar yesterday on some of those opportunities, and you can find that on the idahoSpaceGrant.org website. But those tend to focus more on higher education students and K through 12 and informal education sort of opportunities. And one more thing, we also know it can be confusing because there is an Idaho EPSCoR, which is focused on NSF. So just so we're cleared, we're doing the NASA EPSCoR program. So moving on. All right, so the focus of today's webinar is on research initiation grants. And so those are intended to get researchers started, either early career researchers that are trying to really establish their research program, or for already established researchers that have decided to take a step in a new direction and they need some seed money essentially to do that. The proposals are due February 16th, as you can see. The nice thing about these, they're $50,000, which generally most people, when they write these, it's basically to support a graduate student and some materials and supplies and or travel. Nicely, these particular research initiation grants do not require any cost share. And you can, for the period of performance, usually people do a year, but sometimes the funds from which these are going to be funded run for a couple more years. So if when writing your proposal, you think it's more feasible for you to do an 18-month type of time frame, that's fine. But if you can do an even shorter, if you can do a 9-month, we love that. So just know you can have a little bit of flexibility. We are planning to award 2 of those, and as always, we do like to encourage the involvement of underrepresented individuals, and that's pretty broad here in the state of Idaho. It besides the sort of traditional interpretation of underrepresented, that also very much includes women, first generation students, low income students, that sort of thing. And one of the big things about those research initiation grants is that it needs to have some benefit to NASA, right? Or some tie to NASA. So we've provided, you will also find these on the Idaho NASA EPSCoR website. But this is where one of the things we really try to point people to, depending on your particular research area. If it tends to be engineering, the technology taxonomy is a good place to look in terms of finding where you fit, so to speak. And TechPort is another good place to say, let's say that you're working on solar cells or something like that. You can go search TechPort solar cells and see all the projects NASA is currently working on or recently closed, to get an idea of what's been done and whether or not your research fits in, or if you are finding sort of a niche, that sort of thing. You can also check out some of these other ones. For those of you who are not aware, NASA's divided into, besides centers, they have 10, they also have mission directorates, which is where a lot of the work is centered. And so you can go and find out more about each one of those mission directorates at these links. We will post these so that you can have access to these links. But in general, if you're looking for aeronautics, that's pretty straightforward. Exploration systems tends to be lunar and Martian related, like our missions getting us back to the moon and onto Mars. Space operations tends to be more things that are going on the International Space Station, etc. Space technology are sort of that early stage research where, you know, it's a relatively low technology readiness level. And science covers wide ranges from earth science, planetary science, astrophysics, heliophysics, that sort of thing. So if you are not sure sort of where you fit in or whatnot, please feel free to ask us, ine@uidaho.edu. We do suggest you look through some of these things first, but if you're really having trouble finding, well, you know, how your research can relate, we're happy to talk with you and see if we can help you figure that out. And so for these research initiation grants, all of the guidelines are on the website. Let me just pull up the website just for 1 second. Okay. So you'll go to submit proposals, and here to the research initiation grants. Here's where you can download. Oh, sorry.
We don't see the website yet. We're still
Sorry.
on the slide.
It's on the wrong thing. There we go. Now can you see it?
I still see the PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you. Let me do that again. PowerPoint's much better. No, I'm just kidding. We're just gonna do this. All right, let me see. I can get this back here. All right, now are you seeing it?
Yes.
Now we see it.
I'm sorry, what? Are you still seeing the presentation?
No, we see the EPSCoR website.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is where you would download the solicitation, and it will walk you through everything here if you've not already taken a look at it. One of the things that is encouraged, but that at least our review committee tends to like to see are letters of support. So if you have a NASA connection that you are collaborating with or whatnot, that does seem to be something they prefer. It's not that we've never funded things without those letters. We have, but those tend to be the stronger ones where they can already see that there's a connection to NASA in some way. Again, if we have some connections, we can't always guarantee, but if you're having trouble finding a connection, we can try to facilitate that as best that we can, as long as we have some time to do that. And sooner than later, it's good, because right now NASA's in the midst of a very busy time of year as they prepare the president's budget, which means that response times can be a little delayed. So everything, we've tried to make this solicitation relatively detailed so that you know exactly what you need to put in there. It all boils down to a single PDF and an Excel file that you will submit through the form on our website, but we give you lots of guidelines, and then you get to see the evaluation criteria right here. So if you're trying to figure out what you should really focus on, this will help you to know which sections carry more weight, if that makes sense. So going back to our presentation. Okay. All right. Everyone back on the presentation?
We're
we
with
are.
you. Yep.
Okay, excellent. All right. So again, you can contact us for questions about how your research aligns, or if you are hoping to make a connection to NASA, we will do our best. We can't always promise, but we can certainly try to help get you connected. With the research initiation grants, those are a great way to get that seed funding. However, if you're still not exactly sure, if you don't have a good collaborator or you're not sure how your research aligns, we do have these other opportunities, faculty fellowships, that we offer for researchers to be able to get a couple thousand, $5,000, which, supports a couple weeks or whatnot during the summer, where they can take a deep dive into things like NASA's plans and through some of their resources to find much more concrete links to how their particular research applies to NASA. We also meet with you to hopefully give you some direction, but that we are, that this should give you the time that you need to get an idea of what that is. And then sometimes after doing that, then people will apply once they've identified, potential collaborators. Maybe they want to go and visit a NASA center to go meet with that collaborator. That's where the collaboration grants come in, and that you can put in for those to have some travel funds to go and visit that NASA center to sort of solidify that collaboration. Now, the opportunities that we just discussed, the research initiation grants, the faculty fellowships, and the collaboration grants, those all come from our Idaho NASA EPSCoR sort of base award. Those are the things that we focus on. But at the national level, NASA EPSCoR also has opportunities, which are great in terms of, really taking your research to the next level. And that's why we're the opportunities we're offering are meant to sort of be prepped for researchers then to go and apply for these larger opportunities. So, and we'll, on the next slide, it'll show some of the dates so that you have those. But probably the biggest one that everybody really likes is the National EPSCoR Research solicitation, and that is for $750,000 over 3 years. We normally have a pre-proposal competition because each EPSCoR state or jurisdiction can submit one proposal to the national. So we normally do a pre-proposal process within Idaho. We get anywhere from 5 to 15 pre-proposals, and then we down select to the one that will be developed into a full proposal and go forward. And then the nice thing is that then NASA's only looking at 28 proposals from across the nation, and they typically end up funding about 15. So those are pretty good odds. If you can make it, if you can make it through the pre-proposal process, then you have decent odds to get a national. It's better than a lot of others. Before that, we also encourage people to apply for rapid research response. This is a relatively new vehicle that they've only been doing for 4 or 5 years now. They are incredibly specific tasks that NASA has identified as something that they kind of want to move the needle on relatively quickly. They're up to $100,000 over a 1-year time period. And so they release the tasks every year. And again, Idaho NASA EPSCoR, we ask for NOIs, asking for people to tell us which task that they are interested in applying to. We get to, as a state, get to submit 6, but you can't do multiple proposals to the same task. So we have to spread them out over the number of tasks that EPSCoR has identified for that year. For instance, we received 15 NOIs this year, and we had to down select to 6 that would then be developing full proposals, which is what they're doing right now. But luckily with those proposals, they're not really a heavy lift. The whole technical part is only 3 pages. The next one that is kind of unique, it's the NASA EPSCoR International Space Station opportunity. And this is really for folks who have research that has been done, but they think that with very minimal effort can then be able to do like a flight on the International Space Station for a short amount of time to get additional results and things like that. So there should be not a lot of development going on here. And that's $150,000 up to 3 years. Matt has one of those. Matt, is there anything that you want to say about the International Space Station opportunity at all?
I would just say if anyone has more detailed questions, I'm happy to answer them at this stage. I think for the purpose of today, Susie's overview is sufficient.
Yeah, excellent. And then there's a couple of fellowship opportunities. One is at the Glenn Research Center in Ohio. That's a faculty fellowship. And then there's also the Track 4 EPSCoR Research Fellows, and we'll give you the dates on this next slide. But usually those are summertime fellowships for faculty members. And you can see here that if you can get your act together relatively quickly, the Glenn Research Center Faculty Fellowship deadline is January 14th. So you got 4 days. You can go get that done really quickly if you want to spend the summer in Cleveland, Ohio. And then the other one that, as we were talking about, the Track 4, that's due April 9th. So you've got a little bit more time. That's in partnership with the NSF. So NSF and NASA have partnered for the funding related to that. We did just talk about the ISS that opened yesterday. And those proposals are due to NASA April 15th, but just in case, because again, Idaho can only submit one proposal for the ISS flight opportunity. So we would need an NOI if you're interested in that by March 1st. So we see if we need to down select. If we only have one researcher interested in the ISS, then that's an easy decision. But if we have 10, we have to down select. Some of the, as we discussed before, the focus of this particular webinar are the research initiation grants. Those are due February 16th. Same thing with the faculty fellowships. February 16th, that's a relatively easy application as well. All that information is on our website. And then as we talked about the research NOFO, that's the $750,000 one. That will be due in mid-January 2025. We're in the middle of submitting one right now. But NASA is likely to release it in October, which means that we will release a pre-proposal solicitation usually in July or August. So you'll just want to like make a note to yourself during summer, like, oh, I should check the Idaho NASA EPSCoR website about this, or sign up for our mailing list on our website. There's a page where you can do that. And then the same thing with the R3s, the rapid research response. Again, NASA will probably release that in mid-November, and our NOIs will probably, depending on when NASA releases it, then we ask for a notice of intent a couple weeks later so that we can down select and still give people enough time to create those brief proposals and move on from there. And then the collaboration grants, those are on a rolling deadline. So, and again, with all of our solicitations, everything is going to be submitted through our website. We don't have email submissions or anything else like that. We do provide budget templates, and those, while those are not required, we do encourage the use of them because they tend to have all the different categories you need to consider and whatnot. There are formulas in those templates, but you can modify them as you need. They're as samples. And so we try our best to make it easy for you. Just know that with the research initiation grants, that you will need to run those through your university research office or whatnot prior to submission. Because we have had a couple of researchers who submit them without doing that, and then their OSP is not always excited about finding out after the fact. So keep on good terms with your office sponsor programs and submit it through them, please. And so at any time, if you have questions, you can contact us. As we mentioned before, either through email, or you can give us a call, or join our mailing list. We also have an opportunity that if you've previously received funding with us and you want to share your story, you can also do that on that one Connect with Us page. But with that, I am going to stop sharing so that I can then, that our team can answer any questions that folks have if you've got some general questions, or Matt, if you wanted to add anything in particular. Okay. Okay, wonderful. I did get a question about biological or astrobiological research. That is absolutely within the purview of NASA's activities. And so that is definitely something that we can consider funding. All right. Any other questions at this point? If they're more general in nature. And if not, then we will stop the recording in a moment. Oh, I got another question. Does the PI have to be faculty? That generally, yes, that given the nature of these awards, they're intended to build the research infrastructure and expertise of Idaho. And so then in that case, it is most likely going to be to faculty, as opposed to more, I guess I would say, researchers that are more likely to move on after a year or two is not necessarily going to build the research expertise of Idaho, if that makes sense. Now, of course, you can support, like a PI can support a graduate student or things like that on their award, but generally, and most of it's my experience, or that the office sponsored programs usually want to see a faculty member as the PI generally. Is that your understanding, Matt?
Yes, I would say that funding a postdoc is not really the intention of these grants, unless it is via a PI who is supporting building a research program through a postdoc.
Yeah. And Glenn, that's a great question about whether or not we have particular sorts of projects having more success, engineering versus science versus educational focus. I can tell you that on this side, on Idaho NASA EPSCoR, we do science and engineering, as long as there's a good tie to NASA. You know, we have done everything from material science to, you know, cryosphere, you know, like environmental related things, because all those things relate to NASA. I would say that on the EPSCoR side, we don't do as much educational focus. That is definitely much more on our Idaho Space Grant side, that we have more of that STEM engagement, getting people interested in STEM careers and things like that. So if you have an educational project, I would definitely do it on the space grant side. I suppose, and Matt, I don't know what your thought is, if there was an educational research component where it was that, you know, you're trying to figure out the best way to do research about assimilating certain concepts, or for astronauts learning on the fly or something, maybe if there was some research thing related to that. But Matt, I don't know your thoughts.
No, I would agree. This is the research initiation grant is funded from our research infrastructure development grant. So the keyword there in both titles is research. So I'd say definitely, unless it is educational research, that it wouldn't be appropriate for this opportunity.
Yeah.
Let me just interject here. Part of my question has to do with previous experience with NASA EPSCoR, which probably ended about 15 years ago for me. We had one of the national grants and so forth, and ours was more science and science application of NASA tools, and we felt like kind of fish out of water because the program was more engineering, much more engineering focused at that point, and and we were always welcome on the science side, but I was just wondering if you've seen that sort of pattern as well, or it sounds like things are across the board.
Yes, we are definitely across the board. That is something we make a very strong emphasis in having a balanced portfolio. Even though we are housed in a College of Engineering and I am an engineering faculty member, we have funded many science-related things, including stuff in the geosciences recently in our program, and some of the national EPSCoRs as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of our latest national EPSCoR is, doing lunar analog studies related down in craters of the moon sort of area, that sort of thing. So
Great, thank you. That's good insight.
no problem. So I had another question. Does tie to NASA mean collaboration with a NASA researcher? Generally, yes. That if you have a letter, and nowadays it's not always as easy to get a letter from a NASA researcher because strangely at different NASA centers, some are okay with, yes, give a letter of collaboration, others are not. But so if you've previously worked with a NASA researcher and they can't give you a letter, sometimes they can give you an informal email, or you can say, hey, I've previously had this project with them and we want to do this now, or whatnot. You can do that sort of thing. However, if you don't have a tie to a NASA researcher, we can try to help you. Or if it's just so glaringly obvious that this is something that NASA is doing and that you're hoping that this will help you get there, to get the kind of results that you can then go and try to apply for other things that help you get to a NASA researcher, that's a possibility. Again, it just depends on what the review committee, what we receive in terms of applications, and then what the review committee feels is strong. The nice thing about while a lot of times we kind of like to think of it as a pipeline that you do, maybe like the faculty fellowship to figure out your alignment, then maybe a collaboration grant, then maybe a research initiation grant, then maybe a rapid research response, and then the national sort of thing. It doesn't always have to go like that, because one of the really great things about especially those rapid research response, that solicitation, is that there is a very detailed list of tasks that they are looking for, along with the contact person for those tasks. So even if you don't, you're not applying to this year's rapid research response and solicitation, you could look at last year's and you can see if there's somebody in your area. They put their contact information in there for a reason, so that people can find them and talk to them about, like, oh, I saw that you're working on, welding in space. So tell me, and you might have an idea for that, and you might be, so you can reach out. They put their emails in that solicitation so that people can contact them. If you're still like a little worried about doing that, you can ask us to help with that, sure. But generally they put that contact information in there for a reason, so that researchers can connect with them. So that's a really good thing to consider, as well as looking at past solicitations that have contacts, and even the national NASA EPSCoR research solicitation. The links to those things are on our website, but you can also look in NASA Inspires and just search EPSCoR and you'll see those solicitations. If you look in the appendices, it will have research areas and contact people, which is really great.
Add on top of that, while we like to see those letters of interest in the project, that none of the funds from a research initiation grant can go to a NASA civil servant. So it's collaborator is maybe used loosely here. It is more that they have a person at NASA who is interested in the outcomes of the project, more so than they are actively involved in it because they cannot receive any funding.
Yes, that's an excellent point. That, yeah, unfortunately, we can't even like fund their travel or anything. Now, you might have a really good existing relationship with someone at a NASA center who maybe has a piece of equipment or software that they're allowing you to use for the project. And if that's the case, great. You know, just as long as the knowledge that you can't pay them for the use of that, they have to offer it up out of their own pocket, so to speak. But maybe they're so invested in what you're doing that they're willing to do that. So that's a great point, Matt. All right. Other questions before we stop the recording? Okay.